Alright, today guys, for you I have the warrior build in my open world build series, and as you can see from the clip on the screen, it is the power warrior, core power warrior with banner build. The one thing that is a little bit out of the ordinary, unlike the raid or fractal build, is that this one runs Phalanx strength. And the reason for that is for the same reason that we run the Might Tempest Ellie, is that you're not always going to have 25 might in the open world, and in a situation where you don't have 25 might, Phalanx strength is going to really help your squad out. Now with the warrior, you also get the benefit of banners instead of over-the-top might. So the obvious question is, what is the benefit of running this warrior build instead of the Condi banner warrior build? And I will touch on that a little bit later in the video, but the TLDR is that this build makes might, which that one doesn't. And might is quite often a very valuable thing to possess for your squad. If your squad is not might capping, then every stack of might you make for your allies around you is, in a sense, a very real and important DPS increase. The second reason to run it, beyond the fact that it is a useful buffing tool, is that you get to play with Greatsword and Double Axe and a power build, which many people find more fun, and especially when you are talking about just roaming around in the open world, you will quite often want to play a power build just because it bursts a little bit harder. That's that's kind of like outside the domain of what this video is about, but it's something to keep into consideration, that you get to play a fun build. It's fun to play with the Greatsword. I hate to say it, like, fun matters, and if you can play a build that's fun and also has a little bit more utility, that's going to be a good thing. I always say that we want these builds in this series to have over-the-top utility and also be fun and easy to play, and this build meets that definition in a way that the Condi Warrior build only gets about halfway there, in that it's fun, not necessarily the easiest to play, and it doesn't have quite the same potential for utility. So hopefully that answers the question, and we can move on and talk about the build. So let's just go ahead and do that. Alright guys, let's talk about the warrior build. So the first thing I'm going to say is that the warrior has a lot of different gearing options depending on whether or not you have spotter, depending on what food you use. And in the open world, all that stuff is very, very variable. So I feel like the best thing to recommend is for you to run a Scholar Rune based build, because that is the rune that you'll use most in raids. And I don't want people to have a set of gear that they don't utilize at all, that they can only utilize in open world, and if they do want to raid on this build, they can't do it in a raid situation. I will show you the gear. It's not strictly optimal as is, because you're not going to have a 100% crit chance. You're going to be a little bit below, like 97 or 98, but it will be perfect for raids. What this means is, and I'll explain when we go over it. So you are going to run with Axe Greatsword, and it's kind of a complicated situation in terms of gear. We're going to have Assassin's Headpiece, Assassin's Shoulders, Berserker Chest, Assassin's Gloves, Assassin's Pants, and Berserker Boots. And then your weapons are Berserker with Force and Accuracy. And then your trinkets are all Berserkers except for one ring, which will be Assassins. If you need to see this visually, you can go to Snowcrows and check out their Banner Warrior build. So again, this is built for Scholar Runes. And if you don't have Spotter, this is going to end up putting you like 2 or 3% crit chance behind optimal. However, if you're the type of person that says, I don't care about raids do not matter to me, I just want the build for open world, well, in that case, I would suggest running Runes of the Spellbreaker. It will give you the exact crit chance you want, and I'll show you by equipping them onto my legendary armor. And then we drop the Banner of Discipline, and then we get Fury, and you can see, boom, 100% crit chance. So, if you don't care about, again, if you don't care about raids and you don't care about any of, or fractals, and all you care about is open world, then yeah, Rune of the Spellbreaker will get you perfectly optimal results. If you care about fractals and you care about raids, and you can just go with Spellbreaker, and you will be a few percentage points shy, but otherwise still fine. So yeah, that is the gear for the warrior. And next we will get into traits. Alright, so the traits are the exact same as you'd expect from the normal raid / fractal warrior, with one change, and that is Phalanx strength. But before we get to that, I'll go through everything. Peak performance, you guys know what this does. In conjunction with Throw Bolus, you get a big damage boost. Yeah, it does what it does. You can check out the rotation on Snowcrows to get an idea of how to use it optimally. But yeah, it's good, and it gives you a nice boost of damage. Forceful Greatsword. The change to Forceful Greatsword is what makes this build work. It used to be the might on crit only applied to your Greatsword. The change now means that when you're on your Greatsword, you still get the might on crit, but when you're on your axe, you have a 50% chance for might on crit, which is very good, because now when you axe 5, you're gonna get roughly about 7.5 might stacks out of that. Before, you would get 0 because axe didn't give you any might on crit. Since axe is at least half your rotation, if not more, you are going to now be able to be a reliable might generator for those around you at the event that you're doing. And then Berserker's Power is, of course, a huge damage boost for Warrior. Tactics, Empowered, that 1% per boon. Very good in the open world because you often end up with lots of boons at meta events. Empower Allies, another thing that is good, makes you valuable to the people around you. And then, of course, Phalanx Strength. Phalanx Strength is super great. It gives you might to 5 allies nearby. So not only do you get the might yourself from Forceful Greatsword, but you give it to 5 people around you. So if you're in a 6-man group, everyone gets might. The trade-off is normally you would take Powerful Synergy here, which gives you a few combo finishers with like your Axe 5 or your Axe 2. For Condi Warrior, Powerful Synergy is good and pretty powerful, but for Power Warrior, it's kind of marginal. You benefit, in the open world, you'll benefit a significantly higher amount from Phalanx Strength. Additionally, this build is going to use a Might on Crit Food to give us even more procs for Phalanx Strength than just relying on Forceful Greatsword. So we'll make a pretty hefty amount of might. Down in Discipline, we take Warrior Sprint. It gives you nice open world mobility, even when you don't have swiftness, and a damage boost. Inspiring Battle Standard gives you more stats for yourself, which is great, because we are definitely going to use banners. And it gives regen. And you might say, well, who cares about the regen? You would be surprised how often I do something like Octovine or Shaq Garant, and I drop my banners, and I start to see regen ticks because people didn't have regen. And you might say, oh, well, who cares? You don't have any healing power. But you actually do have a little bit of healing power from Inspiring Presence, especially when you're stacked up with might. So you will find that your regen, I mean, it's very small, but it's a very useful thing to have in the build, because people at the events might not have regen, and this helps a lot. And then Burst Mastery makes your burst skills, which we like, do more damage and gives you the adrenaline back. But of course, the reason that we like Discipline the most is Fast Hands, because it makes our rotation fluid and fun. So that's it for traits. For skills, we want to take to the limit. It is a huge heal, and it gives you full adrenaline on command, which is good. Banners are, besides the might stacking, and maybe beyond the might stacking, the reason that we play this build. Banner of Discipline and Banner of Strength affect 10 people. So when you're at a meta event like Octovine, you add an insane amount of stats to your squad by dropping banners. I know I got flack for this in my Ellie video, saying saying it hurt, it bothered me when I saw people running bad builds. And I understand why some people objected to that, but I will say this: if you are a warrior and you're at a meta event like Octovine or Shaq Garrett or Serpent's Ire or Thunderhead Keeper, whatever, and you're not dropping, and you're not playing with banners, you're playing with like all signets or something, you're doing it wrong. There's no right or wrong way to play the game. But not using banners is as close to the wrong way as it's possible to be wrong. So if we're gonna say that there's no right or wrong way to play the game, not using banners at big group events is as close as we're going to get to it being the wrong way to play the game. The boost to your squad, to yourself, because of Inspiring Battle Standard, is worth more than your signets. The banners plus Inspiring Battle Standard makes your signets look stupid. There is no reason to not be playing the banners, but yet some people don't. No accounting for intelligence or taste. But yes, just please, guys, use the banners. Next, Throw Bolus. Throw Bolus is ideal for proccing our peak performance because it has a very low cooldown compared to Kick. And it has more stacks. Well, not more stacks, but you'll get more sustained peak performance uptime out of Throw Bolus, so it's our weapon of choice. Signet of Rage. Signet of Rage in raids doesn't really do much besides give you some passive adrenaline because you would never really want to activate it. In raids, you end up using Rampage just because it's an emergency CC button. Signet of Rage in open world is quite good. There could potentially be times where you don't have Fury. And if you see that you don't have Fury in a fight, you should definitely activate the Signet to get Fury, because Fury is more important than a lot of buffs. You should definitely activate the Signet and get the Fury. Especially now with the change to Mesmer's Signet of Inspiration, their Signet of Inspiration only boosts you on boons you have. So if you don't have Fury and the Mesmer nearby uses Signet of Inspiration, it's not going to help you with Fury. But if you give yourself Fury with this Signet and they cast Signet of Inspiration, now all of a sudden it helps you. So you got to be aware of what boons you have, what boons you don't have. Additionally, since we're stacking might with Phalanx Strength, Signet of Rage is an easy 5 might right off the bat at the start of the fight. Right when you're about to go into combat, not a bad idea to pop that. Give some people around you a quick boost of might. Yeah, it's just a really more useful thing in open world than Rampage. And of course, the swiftness on it is not bad either. Getting around open world with swiftness is fine. Plus, you get the extra 1% damage from Empowered with that. So with that said, that is the traits and the skills. Relatively straightforward. And I will do a quick little raid dummy like golem to show you the rotation. And we'll go over that in slow-mo so you can see what is going on there. And one thing I will say is I really like this rotation. It loops very nicely. So It's relatively easy to learn. Rotations I find that are easy loops that just repeat themselves over and over are the best to learn. And you'll see why when we go over it. So stay tuned. So we want to open with our heal skill to fill up our adrenaline, throw bolus, then eviscerate 2, 3, 4, 5 on the axe. Pretty straightforward. And then we are going to bolus again. 3, 2, burst on the axe, swap to greatsword burst, 100 blades. Then after 100 blades, we'll whirlwind attack, blade trail, 1 auto or 2, bolus, greatsword burst, swap back to axe, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just like that, it will be back up. Then we will do the axe burst, and then 2, 3, and back to greatsword for the burst. So you can see the build. You can just loop this infinitely, repeating the same skill series infinite amount of times. It'll change a little bit based on the cooldown of bolus, but for the most part, you're going to use the same skills in the same order every time, and it goes infinite. And then, yeah, that's all you really got to worry about. Super fun, easy rotation, and you can pick up the basics in just a minute or two. All right, and lastly, I want to talk about food and stuff. This is most of the builds. It's kind of optional what food you use, or if you even use food, or in most cases, there's cheap versions to use. In this case, there's really only one food that works, and it's fried golden dumplings, which are relatively cheap, but you need it. It gives you a little bit of boon duration, like 4%, like nothing huge, but it is the 35% chance to gain might on crit, or 33% chance to gain might on crit. So you're going to be getting a lot of might from this, especially because this build attacks rapidly, especially with like Axe 5, Axe 2, Axe 4, and then 100 blades and whirlwind attack. You have a lot of attacks that hit multiple times very rapidly. So there's no ICD on this, so you gain the might very quickly, and you're already gaining might on your strikes from Forceful Greatsword. So this is sort of what makes it work and what makes it viable in open world. So essentially, it is the glue that holds it together. Then alternatively, for your nourishment, you should use the Sharpening Stones just to give you the fat extra power to help a little bit make up from all the Assassin's gear that the build has to use. But really, that is it. This build is great. It's everything we like about Warrior, which is getting to use your Greatsword, which is getting to use dual axes, which is getting to drop banners and buff everybody around you while still doing decent DPS. It's good. I think it's the best option for the open world. Yeah, you can play with the Condi Banner Warrior, and it's perfectly fine. And there might be a situation, especially where you look at your squad and you see who you're with, and you go, I don't need to play the power version. If you look at your squad and you have one of the Might Tempests in your group, and you're like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. He's Might Tempest. He's going to load me up with Might. You don't need to play this power build with Phalanx Strength. You can say, okay, I'm going to put on my Condi gear and go and play Condi and get a little bit more DPS out of the deal, but you still got to bring banners. If you look around at your squad and go, these are complete random people and no one's going to be doing quite enough for the Might department, well then you do want to play this and make the Might for everybody. Because if everyone in your squad is at 15 might and you give them 10 to top them off, that's a huge amount of stats in addition to the banners. So in a situation like that, this build works. And I think this build is also really good since it has such high burst for roaming. This is just the best warrior build to play in the open world overall. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoy it. I know this wasn't the most exciting because it's very, very similar to a build most of you are already running if you are Warrior fans. But Sometimes simple is effective, and in this case, simple is effective. Hope you enjoy it, and I hope those of you out there who haven't given this one a shot yet take the chance to do so, and let me know how it goes. Thanks.